I grew up in a small town here in Alaska. So small, in fact, that we never really called it a town. Nestled between the towns of Kisealof and Ninilchik is what I would like to call the heart of the Kenai Peninsula, Clam Gulch, Alaska. I remember the move from Seward when I was 6. My biological father had recently told my mom, "I choose the booze," when he was faced with what should not have been a difficult choice. His choice broke me and my brother at that time. We didn't understand. What we did understand was that it meant a huge change for us as my mom whisked us away to a place of safety, a place that I would learn to call home. We embodied what it meant to be low income. My biological father used to steal the monthly welfare and my mom's car to do binge drinking. She met another man about a year after she divorced my biological father, and he lived in the middle of nowhere and was a commercial fisherman. Just the lifestyle my mom strived for to get out of the small town where everyone knew her business and into the woods where no one could find us. I remember not having running water for the first 3 years. I also remember the cold outhouse for over 5 years. As I progress through my graduate program, I find myself looking at my own childhood situations and reflecting on not just how the low income way of life impacted me personally as a child, but how it has impacted my future and my goals. Our family being low income did have an impact on the approaches to education in our household. There were many times that my parents would pull me and my brother out of school for weeks, if not a month at a time, so that they could go commercial fishing on their long lining boat. This is a way of life for many Alaskans, but for our family, it was the sole income that we had, and that meant that my dad could rarely afford to hire a deckhand. So my mom would go with him so that the money they earned from the trip would go solely to expenses and the rest in their pockets. We spent a lot of time with our godfather in Seward, which also kept us in touch with other family, but we had lost a lot of time in school. This was damaging to me and my brother's education, our social life, and our overall understanding of why we were always singled out by our teachers. Our teachers didn't understand the lifestyle that we were forced to live, and therefore we were constantly threatened to fail out. To this day, I harbor a lot of resentment to the educators that made my family feel less than and failed to work with our situation. If there were any other choice, my family would have made sure that we never missed school. But what is to be expected of them when they're wondering how they'll have enough gas to pick us up from school, let alone to drop us off? We never understood the why behind our lifestyle, but as I've grown older and I'm able to reflect on the time of my life from the age of 4 until 18, I'm grateful to not only be able to understand, but to be able to give back to my parents. The why doesn't matter. It's what we've done with the experience that matters. One of my biggest struggles after branching out on my own and leaving home was being thrown into a different lifestyle. Growing up, the only way of life I knew was commercial fishing, and that money had to be pinched. When I moved in with a friend, I experienced the complete opposite. They spent money like it grew on trees. They skipped school and work like it was nothing. I didn't understand why they would do such things, but I adapted and got into my own groove over time. I longed to go to school, but did not know where to start. I didn't know what to expect in college. My parents never went. I was terrified. But with time, I overcame my own fears, and through a lot of trial and error, I ended up where I am now. Still in school almost a decade later, but with the goal to help many with student transition. I was homeschooled for my high school years. I was lacking so many social skills and unfamiliarity with not just a secondary school setting, but then trying to move into post-secondary education. It led to an anxiety that had me convinced I was not going to succeed and I was doomed to fail. I became my own worst enemy with self-doubt and no real support system in the beginning. This is something that I feel many Alaska Native students may feel when they are faced with the choice to begin post-secondary education. So many students come in from the villages where there's a particular way of life and cultural understanding. When they begin the process to start classes, they're overwhelmed and unsure of where to turn to for help. There are programs for these students to go to for help, but many are scared and intimidated and do not understand the type of help that they can give. This is a huge barrier for these students, and it is something that I am personally tying into my research and this curriculum development plan to be able to help these type of at-risk students. Student retention is a growing concern among campuses around the nation, and more universities are developing programs to combat the problem to increase the success rates in first-year and first-generation college students. UAA has expanded their Native Student Services and Multicultural Center departments to be more proactive in student success. These programs develop internal programs for studying, holding events, and an overall place to share additional resources to help students not feel as if they were alone and lost in the university system. For my research project, I'm looking at how e-portfolio systems can be used as a tool to bridge secondary and post-secondary education systems, particularly in Alaska, to aid in these student retention efforts. I'm looking forward to taking all of the elements that I have learned in this course and applying them to launch this curriculum plan that I have developed. In the end, this will help future learners see their value and begin their path to success. I am linking my research with practice in ways that I never saw prior to starting my degree program. And this course has been the most rewarding in seeing not just the development of my plan, but my overall growth in my profession and goals as I work in a space that I am passionate about. As they say, it's not about where you've been, it's about where you're going.